congregation please rise? Thank you all. You may be seated. Friends, we gather here today in the protective shelter of God's healing love. We are free to pour out our grief, to release our anger, to face our emptiness, and to know that God cares. We gather to comfort and to support one another in this loss, especially remembering George and Catherine, Jeremy, Charles, Elizabeth, James, Edith, and Eleanor. We gather to hear God's word of hope that can drive away despair and move us to offer praise again to God. We gather to commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Lottie, as we celebrate the good news of Christ's resurrection. For whether we live or whether we die, we belong to Christ, who is Lord of both the dead and the living. This time I'm going to invite the family forward, Charles, Elizabeth, James, Edith, and Eleanor. They're going to do a family candle lighting. First, they're going to light 2 candles that represent the spirit, the presence of their parents, Henry and Catherine, and then they'll each light a candle to represent themselves. And then they will light a 6th candle that represents Lottie, her continued presence and spirit with us here today. Would you like to come forward? So each of the hymns that have been selected by the family today, these three hymns that we'll share together, were each Lottie's favorites. It's hard to pick some of Lottie's favorite music because she played so much and had so much. That was her favorite. But I'd like to invite you to stand and join with me in singing our first hymn at this time. And if you would perhaps pay extra careful attention to the words that you're singing and saying, and perhaps give some thought to what Lottie might be saying to you today through these words. So would you please stand and join me in our first hymn. So as Magdalena makes her way to the piano, I do want to say a special word of thank you for her presence here today. Magdalena and Lottie work quite close. As George explained to me this week, their relationship was not one of teacher and student, where one talks down or teaches one who is less experienced than they are. Their relationship was more like coaching, which was not just limited to music. They shared so much more about life and about family. And we are grateful for Magdalena's presence here today. Thank you. to share with you the words of the 23rd Psalm. I say that I'm honored because this was the prayer that we prayed together the last time that I saw Lottie. Catherine and George and Lottie and I joined hands and recited these words together. And this was also a reading that they shared together as a family shortly before she died. These words say a lot about what Lottie believed, who God was to Lottie, but they also say quite a bit about who Lottie was to us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. It's also my honor this afternoon to introduce to you the Chinook Chamber Singers. This group of musicians is also quite dear to George and to Lottie and their family. They're comprised of friends and colleagues and former students. As George expressed in my office this week, this song doesn't need too much introduction. Fight the good fight with all thy might. It's one of those songs where the words and the lyrics say exactly what we mean and what we feel today. The 13th chapter, the first 13 verses is a passage from Scripture that also doesn't need too much introduction. It's one that I know that you have heard on many occasions. I'm going to invite Eleanor to come forward to read this passage for us this afternoon. She did read it at her mother's funeral service as well, And Lottie herself read it at Catherine's wedding, so it's an important passage that has woven its way through their family. And I know it's their honor and mine to share it with you this afternoon.
If I speak in the tongues of humans or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. And where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now, I see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
So this time I'd like to invite Edith to come forward. This is the time in our service that, as you might imagine, is the most difficult for the family gathered here today. They've worked quite hard and quite closely through the last several days to come up with some meaningful stories and memories to share with you today. So Edith will be here. Thank you.
Lottie Marie Austin. I was always comforted and honored to grow up with Lottie. Lottie and I were sisters and best friends for 61 years. Over the years, we were constantly phoning, then in later years, emailing and texting. We preferred to have a good talk, though, on the phone on Sunday afternoons. As children, we shared the same bed until we were 9 and 11, respectively, only to move into the renovated attic in twin beds for pretty well the rest of public school. Lottie demonstrated her love and patience for others early on. When we shared a bed as little girls, I had a bedwetting problem. Too often, one of two things would happen. If I woke up in time to go to the bathroom, I I was too afraid to walk the short distance to the bathroom in the dark, so I woke Lottie up. She escorted me to the bathroom, leaned up against the wall to wait for me, and then escorted me back to bed. That was the better choice of the two. If I did not wake up first, I just peed in the bed while sleeping. Lottie, being the sweet child that she was, never complained about either scenario. For years after Lottie and George were married, Lottie and I used to rib George that I had actually slept with Lottie longer than he had. When we were young, the siblings sometimes teased Lottie that she must have been adopted because her name starts with an L, and all the other sisters start with an E. She was not happy about that line of teasing. Our mother and father chose the name Lottie for her to honor our father's sister, our Aunt Lottie Austin Cook, because she was a great role model for all girls. As it turned out, Aunt Lottie and our Lottie had similar characteristics in that they were well-educated, hard workers, very successful business women. They were leaders in their fields, and they were loving mothers and generous aunts. They always took the time to speak to other women, to nurture and educate. Lottie enriched others' lives. Everyone who spoke to her came away feeling important. She engaged people. She was a great listener and picked up on what others were interested in. Nothing was too much trouble. If it was worth doing, it had to be done well. Everything had to be fantastic. Whether that was lunch on the back deck, picnicking at Waterton Lakes National Park, or eating in a fancy restaurant. She was always focused on making memories, particularly for George and her children. Her exuberance for life could be exhausting for others, however. Over the past 20 years, the four sisters have been traveling once a year to enjoy each other's company at what we refer to as our Sister Summit. These gatherings always included the finest restaurants in the chosen city, daily walks, sometimes a sing-along, dancing, shopping, reminiscing, lots of laughing, and some crying. The schedule and activities were set by the host sister. The sister summits in Lethbridge/Calgary were always very busy. Once after a long night at a private painting course for the four sisters, which involved painting fruit, and drinking all the wine at the instructor's house, we were up early the next morning to go for our daily walk and review the upcoming events for the day. Suddenly, Elizabeth stopped in her tracks and exclaimed, "I feel like I'm on a course!" When Lottie's in charge, there always seems to be a program. At home on a Saturday night when we were young, our parents were very busy. Dad made sure that we were all bathed, at least 2 at a time. Our mother ironed all the Sunday dresses and shirts, preparing for the next day's church. Sunday mornings, our father polished all of the brown leather shoes for the whole family. Upon completion, he lined them all up. We just had to pick ours out. The girls wore fancy hats and white gloves. The white gloves were a problem, though. There were seldom matching pairs to be found, so our moms strategized. We were each to carry 2 gloves in our right hand. Therefore, others would not realize that we never had matching gloves. Our father passed away when Lottie was 7. The house was quieter on Sunday mornings. One Sunday, Lottie and I were feeling left out since no one seemed to be around early in the morning. We decided to run away to the basement. We played in the basement, but soon found that we were bored and no one missed us, and no one even searched for us. The following Sunday, we decided to run away for real. So we ran away to the bus terminal, which was about a 15-minute walk from 34 Academy Street. We successfully made it to the coffee shop stools, sharing our 20-cent fries. We were confident there because our mother often took us there for a break when she did her Thursday afternoon shopping downtown. Lottie and I were feeling pretty satisfied with our successful escape until we spotted our father's previous secretary walking in. We suspected that our gig was up and we would be apprehended shortly. Sure enough, she called our mom, and within minutes, we were in the secretary's car being escorted home. Lottie's future adventures were more successful and further afield. She loved to travel to create memories. During her younger years, she traveled to Europe with our high school band, then to Yellowknife for a summer job. George and Lottie spent their first married year together in London, England, studying music. They continued to travel as a couple and as a family with Catherine and Jeremy in Europe, South Africa, and Hawaii. Lottie loved Nova Scotia though, so during many of the summers, she and George and the children toured Cape Breton, Halifax, the South Shore, and often Prince Edward Island. Pictou Lodge, outside of Pictou, Nova Scotia, became a favorite destination since Lottie and George invited all of her siblings to share a week's holiday with them for a wedding anniversary. We had a memorable week, paddling, swimming, walking on the beach, playing board games, and eating as a family every night. Lottie demonstrated her leadership in the family by bringing us together year after year in that rustic ocean setting. Lottie was an angelic child. She loved to please people. I was reminded of that while sorting through pictures of Lottie recently. There's one picture of us in 1963. We were at Alexander Graham Bell's burial stone at Ben Bria on the island across the bay from Bedeck, Cape Breton, where we were born. Our mother had asked us to point at the large burial stone for the picture. I, of course, refused. I thought that was a ridiculous idea. The picture is proof that while I was being obstinate, Lottie was being sweet, pointing at the large rock. Lottie's love for music was evident as a child. She and I began piano lessons with elderly Miss Bell when Lottie was perhaps in grade 3. Every Wednesday afternoon after school, we walked the 15-minute journey to Miss Bell's house. The entire way there, Lottie was skipping along with her music bag in hand, overjoyed to be taking piano lessons. Beside her, I was dragging my feet, dreading the whole experience. The difference was she was prepared. Every night, while others were watching TV or doing homework, Lottie quietly made her way into the living room, closed the 3 doors, and created her own musical cocoon. She developed into a young musician over all those evenings. In junior high, she added trumpet. She used the same discipline to conquer the trumpet, taking first chair in our high school band, although younger than most of the other trumpet players. Although Lottie and I were very close, the piano playing became an issue. She was always practicing. Often when I was trying to study upstairs in the attic, she would be practicing playing the piano in the living room. As she became more accomplished and louder, her playing often interfered with my homework. I would call down the stairs yelling, "Stop banging on that darn piano!" She would try to be more quiet, but she never stopped playing. As she verbalized in her later years, playing the piano was good for her soul. Lottie's competitive streak blossomed as a young adult. We did not really notice it much until one summer when our mother had rented a cottage at the beach so that we together when we returned to the Maritimes. We were enjoying a lovely game of Monopoly at the large kitchen table at the cottage when Lottie began knocking people out of the game through her ferocious competitive drive. When there was only 2 players left, Lottie was laughing, jumping up and down, and reveling in her sure victory. The thrill of competition was evident. Her siblings were shocked. As you know, that was only the beginning. A few years later, when we were living in Winnipeg and George and Lottie were living here, Bill had called them to tell them that I had delivered a baby girl, Alexandria. Lottie and George got into their car and drove directly to Winnipeg. They arrived at our house unexpectedly during the afternoon while I was still in the hospital, and Ethan and Bill were visiting me there. The doors of our house were locked. Lottie was not deterred. She literally broke into the house by the basement window, crawled in through the narrow opening to gain access. After all, she wanted to unpack before surprising us at the hospital. That was 33 years ago. Her determination and assertiveness continued to develop. 34 Academy Street was up the hill from Amherst Regional High School where we attended. We always climbed that hill home for lunch every day. When we finished lunch, we often danced together for 15 or 20 minutes until it was time to literally run back to school before the afternoon bell. The jive was often the dance we practiced, which we thought achieved American Bandstand status. 3 weeks ago, when we were here in Lethbridge, Grayson, Lottie and George's granddaughter, wanted to show us some of her dance moves. She had the music ready, but was a little shy to dance in front of such a large audience, the entire Austin Evelyn clan. So Catherine, Eleanor, and I got up to dance with her. Within seconds, the whole family was dancing in the family room and the kitchen. Lottie was lying on the family room couch, dancing with her arms, until she was satisfied to watch. We danced to probably 12 or 14 songs, including several from the Box Tops, which was a late 60s group that we often danced to when we were home at lunch. It was an amazing family experience involving 3 generations, initiated by the youngest one there. Christmas time at 65 Wildwood Road was always a welcome holiday location. Lottie and George invited anyone who could travel to come together for family festivities. The Christmas Eve celebrations at the Austin Evelyn family have been an amazing musical experience for many families over 35 years. These families included new people to the community, neighbors, colleagues, and of course family. Lottie's love and dedication to family, her desire to make music, her openness to include others in her celebrations and adventures, and her kindness and generosity to others is just a glimpse of the person that she was. Catherine and Jeremy, you will always remember your mother in your hearts. Being amongst her things will be a comfort to you. The thousands of photos and videos will always remind you of Lottie's amazing life and deep love for you. Use the many strong attributes she passed on to you to help you throughout your life, to achieve your goals and to live a happy life. Hold all those things in the memory in your heart, knowing you were loved incredibly. Over the years, George has provided a remarkable level of care for Lottie. He has been exceptional as a caregiver and a pillar of strength and devotion. His commitment to Lottie has been exemplary, and we as a family feel extremely blessed and fortunate to have him as a member of our family. The Austin family has appreciated his devotion and attention to providing Lottie with the best possible care, a loving and happy marriage, and a wonderful family, and for that we will always be thankful. George, you have been a brother in the Austin family for decades. You have often said that it has been an honor to be Lottie's husband and to be able to care for her over the years. We are thankful to have someone as supportive, devoted, and caring as you Austin family. We as a family want you to know that we will always be there to support you, Catherine, Sivu, and Jeremy.
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here despite the weather. Really appreciate it. Before I begin, I just wanted to emphasize there's a little email address in your programs called Lottie Memories. One of the great things about celebrations of life is that we can earn a perspective about our mother that we might not have. So if you have any memories written or recorded, please send them to that email so we can enjoy them as well. There are many reasons why I think my mother's special, but today I'm going to focus on just 3 of them. First was her love of music, second was her love of her children, and third was her drive to live life unapologetically. If it weren't for my mother's love of music, I probably wouldn't be here today. My parents had a shared passion for music. When I asked my mom what she found most attractive about my father, she said it was his voice. When your parents have a combined 5 degrees in music, it means that you'll be enrolled in music lessons as a kid. Whether you like it or not. My primary instrument, just like my mother's, was the piano. For 10 years, I would spend 1 hour a week with my piano teacher and 1 hour every other day of the week with my mom practicing the piano. She was uniquely qualified to practice with me, not just because she was my mother, but because she had a master's in piano performance, of course. When it came to learning a new piece, there was a method to the madness. We'd break the piece up into sections and practice each section individually and then focus on the transitions and so forth, so on and so forth until the piece was memorized. After the piece was memorized, we would try and refine it repeatedly for tempo and volume and prepare it for festival performance. The method was pretty straightforward, but my mother was a perfectionist. Before I could move on to the next section, I had to perfect the current section. Memorizing the piece wasn't that hard because I knew the sections pretty well, but making sure the volume and tempo matched the expectations of the composer, and more importantly, my mother, was the difficult part. My mom required a perfect result in each step of the process before we could move on to the next step. She used the word perfect so many times that I eventually got fed up, and I began trying to convince her that it's not technically feasible for anybody to be perfect at anything. She didn't like that. In fact, she ignored me. Keep in mind, as a child and a teenager, my idea of perfection was sitting in front of the television playing Xbox with my buddies. When I think back to my days in piano boot camp, I realized that it wasn't necessarily a perfect result that mattered. It was the pursuit of perfection. I found that the harder I practiced, the closer I got to achieving the perfect result that my mother knew I could produce. The pursuit of perfection in piano gave me a strong work ethic, and I enjoyed the personal satisfaction that followed a perfect performance or a near perfect performance. The pursuit of perfection was rewarding, but tedious. We made sure to celebrate all that hard work with a milkshake and a BLT after all of my festival performances, even if I didn't place first. Because what was important was that my mom didn't expect me to be a professional musician when I grew up. But in her own words, she knew that I'd carry music and all of its lessons with me for the rest of my life. She knew this because she had experienced it herself. My mom felt that she could do anything she wanted with music as her bedrock. She leveraged that pursuit of perfection and work ethic in each stage of her career, her volunteer work, and her relationships. Not many kids were as lucky as I was to have the opportunities I had back then. I got to learn an instrument from a professional. I got to spend time with my mother, learn life lessons, and most importantly, I got to celebrate those hard-earned victories with her. The high standards my mother expected in piano extended to things like table manners, grades, grammar. They were very much aligned with my mom's principles of tough, consistent love and a commitment to do what she said she would do. After her mother had raised 6 kids on her own, my mom felt like she had big shoes to fill. She knew that if she was going to be as good a mother as her mother was to Catherine and I, she was going to have to be strong-willed, principled, and consistent. What's commonplace among most who knew Lottie was that she was a fighter. She had successfully fought disease and illness many times over. She seemed to defy the odds. What I hadn't always understood and appreciated, though, was why. What motivated her to be such a fighter? A few weeks ago, I got the chance to ask her, and she told me that without a doubt, the fuel to her fire was to do right by her children. In 2001, when I was just 9, my mother was diagnosed with amyloidosis. Her doctors at the time told her she had 6 to 18 months to live. Long after she had a successful stem cell transplant and was pronounced in remission, I asked her, what was your reaction to that initial prognosis? She told me then that she reacted by telling herself, I only have 6 months to teach my kids all they need to know. She had made a commitment to herself to raise her children, and damn it, she was going to keep that commitment. What I think most made my mother special was her drive to live life unapologetically. It didn't matter what got in her way, she was going to live life the way she wanted to live. I joked with somebody recently that if there were a loyalty program for hospital visits and illness in general, my mother would have lifetime super elite status. However, I can count on one hand the number of times that my mother played the role of a victim. She didn't have the time or the headspace to be a victim. She only had time for a positive and constructive attitude, and once she was out of the hospital, she went right back to living her life. In the last few weeks of her life, she was proud to tell us that she wasn't afraid to die because she and we had led a great life. There are many examples of my mom choosing to overlook the prevailing logic of a decision or situation simply in the name of doing what she wanted, what made her happy. For example, she wasn't afraid to ask anyone of anything, even if it meant you felt awkward. She loved to enjoy the finer things in life. But for me, the greatest example of her living her life unapologetically was her decision to go back to work as soon as she could, despite her illness. To be clear, my mother loved her work. She found the environment, the work, and the people intellectually stimulating. In the last year, her schedule included dialysis 3 times a week, chemotherapy once every 2 or 3 weeks, and if that wasn't enough, remember that she lived here in Lethbridge, so she would have to travel once a week up to Calgary with my dad. Despite these hurdles, my mother continued to work. In fact, she was working the week before she was admitted to the hospital. This doesn't make any sense, does it? Many of us question it. But I have to credit my mom. She wasn't going to let anything or anyone get in the way of her living her life. Just like she had done with respect to raising her children, she had made a commitment to herself to continue to chase the ambitions in the workplace, to continue to pursue perfection, to continue winning, and most importantly, to continue celebrating life. So, while I stand here today, I'm quite sad to not have my mother with me. But I want to ask each and every one of you, when you have the next opportunity, to take a time to raise a glass in her honor and congratulate her on a life well lived.
I was entered into one of many of my Kiwanis Music Festival competitions. This time I was to be competing in a piano category for the first time. I was really nervous because the piano was a new instrument for me. At the time, I was much more comfortable playing the violin, what with my 2 years more experience. When it came time for me to perform, they called my name, and I froze. They called it again, and I sat there frozen. I didn't move. They called it for the third time, and I turned to my mom, who was sitting next to me, and I said I would only even consider going up to play if she sat beside me the entire time. She quickly chatted to the adjudicators, and the next thing I knew was performing my little piano piece with my mom sitting on the piano bench next to me. So right now I'm visualizing her sitting next to me, not saying a word, just sitting there looking regal, graceful, as she always did, and supporting me and guiding me in her calm and devoted way. When I think back on my mom's life, I think of some of the things she loved the most. She truly believed that there was no trouble so great or so grand that couldn't be diminished by a nice cup of tea. It was a cure-all for her. She loved her home, she loved entertaining her amazing group of friends that she nurtured here in Lethbridge, and the family that would visit us from Texas and from the Maritimes. We all know a casual tea party from my mom involved crystal, fine china, classical music, beautiful napkins. She loved having and using nice things, and she felt that this was part of enjoying the pleasures of life, every day and as often as you can. She loved to toast champagne in her Nova Scotian crystal glasses, sometimes just to toast a good week, or to toast someone else's achievements, but also never afraid to celebrate her own milestones. She knew every day was a gift. Christmas was a treasured time for her and for all of us. We had a beautiful set of traditions passed down through the years from her mother in the house that she grew up in. But she also started her own traditions, like the Advent tea she began in her mother's honor each Advent season, featuring this beautiful tea set that you see in front of me. During my first year at Mount Allison, when the Advent tea was to be held while I was still in New Brunswick, she did all her baking and sent me a care package filled with all of her cookies and squares that she was going to be serving, special napkins, and a family teacup, so that I could throw my own little Advent tea in my dorm room. Every get-together she hosted had a celebratory tone, and often made way for the famous Lottie-led sing-along. We would all gather around our beautiful grand piano in the living room and sing along to whatever she played, usually just from memory. She loved her family more than anything, and she ensured that there were many opportunities for us to spend time together. This meant family dinners every single night growing up, mandatory church outings to this church, celebrating everyone's achievements and family vacations every year, no exceptions, even when we were kids. She loved to travel, and she visited me in almost every country I lived in, even to her surprise, South Africa. She loved my father deeply, and despite all of her own health challenges, she made sure he was taken care of, getting a break, and that his health was also a priority. In her final weeks at home, we were able to bring her home from the hospital, and we were fortunate to have all of our extended family around us. My Aunt Eleanor had brought champagne to toast her continued improvement in her return home. But instead, my mom requested specifically that we toast my dad and his most recent clean bill of health. She was always thinking of others first, especially us. She's had a profound influence on my life and the life of others. She taught me to look for the best in everyone, no matter what. She taught me to be kind, caring, and generous, and that it's far more important to be interested in others rather than interesting to others. Her sincere and inquisitive nature was remarkable. No matter what your job, your title, or your stature in life, she made everyone feel special. This was a rare art and an immense gift. She taught me about social justice and that community requires leaders who initiate, engage, and host. If she saw a problem that needed fixing, she set out to fix it, never assuming it would be done for her. This was exemplified in her deep commitment to her own community here in Lethbridge, from projects that ranged from fundraising for the arts to installing a safe passageway on the west side hill of Lethbridge after a tragic accident took the life of a friend. My mom taught me to be strong, taught me to be tough and to stay positive even when things looked bleak. She was a graceful warrior. She was calm but assertive when she needed to be. She was a woman with well-informed opinions and strong in her convictions. She encouraged political and social debate and discussions in our home. She taught me not to indulge in pouting or resentment and the value of moving on from conflict quickly. She was able to correct you and simultaneously make you feel warm and fuzzy at the same time. I would say this played out the most, as Jeremy alluded to, with regards to proper table manners and good grammar. My mom instilled in me a deep and abiding love for the Maritime provinces. Her 2 Alberta-born children decided on maritime universities for our undergraduate education, mostly because she cultivated a deep connection to where she grew up. We knew so much about her wonderful childhood through stories, photos, and annual family gatherings. Sometimes her memories started to feel like our own. We knew her own mother very well, and she made sure that we had special relationships with every single one of her siblings. We traveled to the East Coast each summer, driving along the Cabot Trail, singing Rankin Family and Bear McNeil songs at the top of our lungs, eating seafood every day, drinking tea, swimming in the ocean, and spending summers at my grandmother's home in Amherst, renting cottages on PEI, and then later at Pictou Lodge. My mother was strong, proud, and stoic. But as Jeremy also alluded to, she taught me never to be afraid to ask for help or an upgrade. Sometimes I would balk at the idea of asking someone for something, particularly when it came to requesting one of her many famous hotel or travel upgrades that I didn't feel I had any business receiving. But she would just shrug and say, "The worst thing they can say is no." Or, "I'm just giving them an opportunity to help out." Her dear friend Sheila gave her a very fitting plaque that still sits in her home a few years ago that reads, "So much to do and so few people to do it for me." My mom and I had a very special relationship. We were a team, and I was very fortunate to have her, but I also think that we made each other stronger. She was an incredible mother with a deep love and devotion for me. She was able to to meet my needs in ways I didn't even know I needed. I never, ever took her for granted. I grew up knowing that my time with her was a gift. I knew that one of the reasons she fought so hard to stay alive was for me and for Jeremy. Unlike many of my peers, I had an acute understanding of how lucky I was to have her here on this earth. One of the silver linings of these decades-long battle with illness was that I cherished every moment, every trip, every phone call. I made the time, I expended the effort to be with her. I never missed a single birthday of hers, including this one. She was my most treasured person in life, and there are no words to describe how crushing her physical absence from my life will be. Her influence shaped the person I am and the mother I hope to someday become. I have incredible one-on-one mother-daughter memories with her. When I was a teenager, we took trips to both Toronto and New York City, where we got into all sorts of adventures. We once got kicked out of a cab in New York for naively thinking we could pay with traveler's checks. And on a trip to Toronto, a crazy day that involves accidentally getting our palms read when we asked for directions, meeting our first ever drag queen, and much to my surprise, she bought theater tickets from a scalper outside of the Royal Alexandra Theater to see Mamma Mia. My mom was determined to have a special evening together in the big city despite our lack of planning. After registering my shock that she would do such a thing, she just simply said, "Don't tell your father." I'm grateful that she not only loved and approved of my husband Sibu, but that they had their own special relationship. He called her his Mama Lottie. When we married in 2016, she took what she saw as a low-key, regular trip to City Hall, which is what I thought I wanted, and transformed it into a meaningful wedding day. She surprised me with South African flowers for my bouquet, an ode to Sibu's homeland and where we met. She took me to get my hair and makeup done, and of course, she provided champagne to toast. She ensured that at the lunch afterwards, there were toasts made in our honor, scriptures and poems read, and songs sung by my dad. She hosted a gorgeous, intimate reception the next night in her hotel suite with family and a few friends. She was thrilled beyond measure that we got not one, but 2 noise complaints. Afterwards, she exclaimed with her hands in the air, "Now this is a real party!" I'll always have that gorgeous and unique laugh replaying in my mind. And even though we were different in some ways, she embraced all of my attributes that were different from her own, and she encouraged me to cultivate them. She inspired me to be true to myself. She taught me to always stick to my own vision for my life, but also to allow myself to be surprised by where my life might lead. She was my original feminist role model. To say my mother will be missed is an understatement. Her absence is now and will continue to be palpable and painful for our family and her beloved friends. But just like she chose to hold on to optimism and find hope in every situation, I too will do my best to do the same. I hope to honor the spirit that she bestowed upon us while she was here. I will seek joy, love, hope, and peace, and try to enjoy every moment and treat it as she did, a gift. On her last full day on this earth, we took her for a walk in her wheelchair outside, and I asked her if I could sing her a song. She said yes. I said, "What song, Mommy?" I was expecting she would say a Rankin family song, or a maritime classic, or a church song, but instead she said California Dreaming. To my surprise and delight, we sat out on a cold December day and dreamed we were in a better place. When I feel sorry for myself or sad, I'll remember her words that I know her mother said to her, which were, "There will always be people who have more and always people who have less." Instead of being able to call her every night after work or on the weekend to tell her about my day or to ask her advice in a big life decision, my new motto will be, "What would Lottie do?" Lottie say? I know she'll answer. And just like she sat next to me on that piano bench so many years ago, I know she'll be by my side throughout my life. I want to end by reading you all a text message my mom sent me in September of this year after a friend of mine from university suddenly passed away. As I was going through our correspondence this week, I found it to be a gift that she had given me for this horrible time, and it's given me some comfort. She said, "A funeral service has a way of confirming the finality of death, yet it allows us to find a ray of joy in life itself. Be at peace. Peace be with you. My peace I give unto you. Let your heart not be troubled, and neither let it be afraid."
We really are rounding third and heading home. First of all, my family and I would like to thank each of you for attending this celebration of life for our dear Lottie. We have felt the support for many years, and in these past few days, the continued support has been unbelievable. I would like to also thank our family members that are here today, whether it be Austin's, Evelyn's, or a combination. As most of you know, I'm a big sports fan. And generally, superstar status is reserved for an athlete that makes all those around them better. Lottie would be quick to agree, as I was informed very early in our marriage that she was a grade 9 basketball star for the Amherst Regional High School. Lottie was a superstar, and she did make everyone around her better. Her drive, determination, and demeanor helped make all of us better, while all the time building relationships that would, in many cases, be lifelong and endearing. To say Lottie was determined is an understatement. Throughout her adult life, she had to deal with significant health concerns. And at every challenge, she showed the world that those health challenges would not define her life. She was in charge, and no health condition was going to deter her from achieving her goals and aspirations. Lottie was one tough cookie. Tough, yes, but always compassionate, loving, and always looking for ways to improve the world in which she lived. Lottie was an inspiration to all. She met you, she'd look you right straight in the eye, and she would make you feel as though you were the only one in the room, because to her, you were. Always with that ready smile and that very distinctive laugh, you realize just how warm and sincere this woman was to everyone. Always ready for a good time, Lottie would often lean over to me and say, "This party needs a little laugh." And then would make it happen. Through initiating conversation, playing the game, or just stirring the pot. Those would get things hopping, and her enthusiasm for life was infectious. She lit up the room and was always so much fun. Shortly after we were married, third day exactly, we had intended to be gone for 5 or 6 days, driving around the Cabot Trail and enjoying Cape Breton. We drove to the end of the road, Meat Cove, Nova Scotia. Now folks, I'm going to tell you, Meat Cove, Nova Scotia really is the end of the road. The road just stops. So we got out of the car, and what we were greeted with was a beautiful, beautiful Nova Scotia day. Beautiful sea vista, beach, and a lonely fisherman down working on his nets. There was just one little problem. We had decided to stay at a motel in short ways out of Inverness. And this place was built sometime last century, Lord only knows. And the beds they hadn't bothered to think about changing mattresses since the place was built, I'm sure. Now, as a newlywed, every time you got in bed and you rolled into the center, that was a good deal, right? But if you wanted to get up and walk the next morning, it was not so good. So we stayed our one night, which we'd already paid for, and the next day we decided we were headed back to Amherst Shore to join the Austin clan and to have a great time as a family. The Austin family is with us today, and I would like to thank them for the last 37 years. That first encounter at Mrs. Brown's cottage was a whole new experience for me. As an only child, it was somewhat intimidating. Trust me. I wondered if I would ever be admitted to full membership. But those fears were quickly taken care of, and I found the family that was always available, always willing to help, and always a great deal of fun. The Austins have become my family, and not just because I happen to be married to their sister. Not just wonderful aunts and uncles to our children, but people you want to be with and enjoy spending time with on a regular basis. Many of our family times were spent in our beloved Nova Scotia. Trips to the Pictou Lodge Beach Resort often included a trip around the Cabot Trail, which always meant a stop at the Farmer's Daughter. Now, the Farmer's Daughter was located very close to Sky Glen, where Lottie's father and his 12 siblings were raised and farmed, and where the Austin family, in their younger years, spent a good deal of time in the summer. It's a beautiful part of the world with beautiful people and some of the best oat cakes in the Maritimes. Lottie told me when we first got married that she didn't want to have children. This was sad to me, and I continued to suggest the child would be a great addition to our family. I persisted, and in 1985, after a horrendous battle with salmonella, our dear Catherine came to live with us. Catherine loved music. Did she have a choice? We've been loaned Bruce McKay's white upright piano, which had been in many public houses around Alberta, playing rock and roll. But anyway, it was ensconced in Catherine's room, and Catherine would sleep, and Lottie and I would practice. So much for choice. After KDA's birth, the C-section delivery, Lottie said, enough. No more children. So off I went to get fit. fixed. By 1991, Lottie had had a good run of health, and KJ had been such a gift that I was told, go get unfixed. So off I went. And sure enough, in 1992, Jeremy made his appearance. Now, Jeremy had a very powerful set of lungs. And at 49, I said to Lottie, it's your turn. Many summers were spent with my two sons, Jeff and Jason. Trips to Waterton, British Columbia, Nova Scotia were an opportunity for them to get to love and know Lottie as well. Jeff and Jason and their wives, Kristen and Carrie, have given us 4 wonderful grandchildren. And Lottie loved those 4 so much. Skyping and FaceTime were always special. Lottie always wanted to spend more time with the Texas families, but work and health seemed to limit our opportunities to physically be together. Music was, and of course is, an integral part of our lives. As you have heard, Lottie loved to practice, listen, perform. Having gone from a grade 9 basketball star, she chose the piano as her instrument of choice. She loved piano music, and she enjoyed accompanying all types of musicians. She studied with some fine teachers and became an excellent pianist. In 2014, Lottie was asked to participate in the Honan's Pro-Am piano competition in Calgary. This was a life moment for Lottie. She was stimulated to practice every day, and because she was working full-time in Calgary, she would have to search out a place and a piano on which to practice. The ballroom at the Palliser Hotel became a go-to place, as well as that outdoor piano at 3rd Street and 6th Avenue, which she practiced at often. Those of you that know the Calgary scene, this is an outdoor piano that shows up every spring and is there through the summertime. Lottie always stopped by and played a piece or two. So, she also used our friend Doug Meyer's home as well. The competition was so exciting for Lottie, and her performance was outstanding. She found working with Magdalena Fonecker, who you just heard earlier, to be so stimulating, and it gave Lottie a chance to be a practicing musician once again. Lottie was a natural-born teacher. She was smart, well-read, practiced hard, and loved her students, even the ones that didn't practice. Youth. Her enthusiasm, drive, and constant pursuit of perfection was infectious and garnered the respect of students and colleagues at all levels. When we moved to Lethbridge in 1982, we knew no one. After speaking with Ann Raslas concerning my appointment to the University of Lethbridge music faculty, Ann offered to have her husband, Russell, help us find a place to live. Russell volunteered Ann's car when the car Lottie had borrowed from a friend in Calgary broke down on the west side hill. After walking the rest of the way up the hill, Lottie met her first Lethbridge friends. And Lottie adopted this community and embraced Lethbridge in so many different ways. Lottie was a person that was always looking forward. When an opportunity to make a career change came, Lottie did her usual. She threw herself into acquiring the knowledge and the designations to help people in another entirely different field. Her career as an estate and insurance advisor was stellar. Starting with Mutual Life, moving on to BMO, then CIBC, and finally back to BMO, Lottie was a natural in the business world. Her intelligence, drive, creativity, and ability to set clients at ease would help make her one of Canada's top advisors. I want to share with you what the head of her division, Paul Lalonde, sent to her colleagues after learning of Lottie's passing, and I quote, "Some of us are fortunate to have met in our lives a very few special people, individuals whose spirit, courage, and grace are indomitable and a tremendous example for the rest of us. Individuals whose presence brightens our most challenging days. But today, that brightness dimmed with the loss of one of those special people. It is with most heavy heart that I must inform you that Lottie Austin passed away early this morning after a long and heroic battle. A consummate professional, Lottie brought her passion, her kindness, and her professionalism to all of her endeavors, be it her music, her charitable works, or her career activities. At BMO, the state and insurance advisors were very fortunate to have Lottie return to our fold several years ago and apply those same qualities as she supported her BMO Nesbitt Burns branches in Calgary. Truly beloved by the advisors she worked with, Lottie's passing is a huge blow that will not necessarily be washed away with the tears that are falling even now. Although she had struggled daily with her challenges for the last little while, Lottie never shirked her responsibilities and worked tirelessly until the very end. Though that battle ended today, ever true to her nature, Lottie passed away peacefully with a smile on her face, surrounded by her loving family. Our thoughts and our wishes go out to them on this saddest of occasions. While we are most proud and appreciative for having known Lottie, we are all diminished by her loss." Unquote. Lottie gave of herself and promoted many different projects. With abiding faith, she served her church home, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church and Southminster United Church. Lottie poured her heart and soul in both of those congregations by sharing her musical talents and with generous gifts, making it possible for many young musicians to serve and to help them with their tuition costs. As a former Rotary ambassadorial scholar, she felt a keen need to back that organization. The Lethbridge Community Foundation, serving as its president, the Lethbridge Symphony Association. Fundraising was her area. And one very dear to my heart and some of these folks behind us, for 14 years, served as the chair of our Festival of Art and Song, which was so dear to our hearts. When CASA became a reality, we had another chance to help. After the U of L Conservatory was offered a place in that wonderful facility, Lottie and I wanted to Lethbridge to know that we had such wonderful young musicians and teachers. And together we set up the Music in the Making fundraising campaign. Faced with the task of raising $500,000 to help furnish the conservatory with new pianos, stands, chairs, etc., we took the conservatory students to the Lethbridge public and were successful in surpassing that established goal, which enabled the conservatory to service more and more of the community because of the generosity of many people seated in this audience today. Lottie and I were a team for 37 years and will continue to be so for the remainder of my life. We were honored by the U of L Senate as Volunteers of the Year in 2012 and again by the Allied Arts Council in 2016 with the Joan Waterfield Memorial Award. We were always supportive of one another, and when necessary, challenged one another, while allowing each other the independence to pursue our own personal goals. On a trip to Istanbul, we were fortunate to be at a function with several whirling dervishes. It was very exciting to see this form of Sufi meditation, but I'll tell you what, they had nothing on my Lottie. She could out-whirl them all. Keeping up with Lottie could be a real challenge. We looked out for each other and loved to travel, and we're fortunate to visit many parts of the world with our children. We lived, worked, played, and loved together. Lottie and our daughter Catherine have hosted an annual Advent tea which started to honor Lottie's mother, Catherine Austin, and to celebrate the gifting of Mrs. Austin's silver tea service, which is in front of us today. After much consideration, the YWCA became the benefactor of this annual event. This year is the 20th anniversary of this endeavor and was to be the kickoff to help the Harbor House project grow so that the YWCA would be able to support more women in need. This project was and is very dear to Lottie and Catherine, and I'm sure they would appreciate your support if you were so inclined. Lottie M. Austin was an unbelievable wife, mother extraordinaire, wonderful sister, super friend, outstanding teacher, stellar businesswoman, and lover of life. Lottie had many rules which she followed throughout her life, but there was one that particularly framed how she lived her life. I quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer, which was found in Lottie's own hand, taped to the music stand on our piano at home, and which she lived her life by. See the light in others and treat them as if that's all you see. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife, Lottie Austin, the mother of our children, was a true superstar, and she will be greatly missed. We would like to treat you with one last opportunity to see and to hear my lovely wife play the piano. This is from the 2014 Honens competition, and she's playing one of our favorite composers, Johannes Brahms. Thank you.
invite you at this time to stand and join me in singing yet another of Lottie's favorite hymns. If you have the red hymnal in front of you, the Voices United hymnal, it's number 220. If you're in the balcony, you'll find the hymn printed on the white page next to you. Would you please stand at this time and join me? Desiderata is the name of a poem written by Max Ehrmann and was important to the Austin family. As I learned this week, it was posted in the kitchen near the telephone. The children say, so as to guide their conversations as they spoke on the phone, but also as a way to guide their lives. And I'd like to invite invite Elizabeth forward to share this poem with us as a way to share some of Lottie's wisdom with us this afternoon, and also perhaps as a way of guiding our lives together today and in the days ahead. Elizabeth.
Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others.
even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially, do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is perennial as the grass. Take kindly to the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Thank you.
This time I'll invite Jillian McKay to come forward to share her musical tribute to Lottie with us today. Her presence here in this service is especially meaningful because she's joining us from Toronto. We're glad to have her. Also because Bach, like Brahms and Beethoven, were a few of Lottie's favorite composers. But her presence here in our service is especially important because of her long and meaningful relationship with Lottie. So we do thank her for her presence and her music today. Our final hymn for this afternoon is also found in the red hardback Voices United hymnal in front of you, number 651. I invite you to stand and join me in singing it now. Let us pray. O God, before whom the generations rise and pass away, we praise you for all your servants, who, having lived this life in faith, now live eternally with you. Especially we thank you for your servant Lottie, now gone from among us. We praise you for the gift of her life, for all in her that was kind and strong and good, for the grace you gave her that kindled the love of your name and enabled her to serve you faithfully with music and love. We thank you that for her death, that though her death is past and pain has ended, and that she has now entered the joy you have prepared in your eternal love. We offer you these prayers in the name of the one who taught us to pray together, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So as George mentioned, as we prepare to round third for home, I do want to say a special word of thanks on behalf of Lottie's family and on behalf of this congregation for your presence here. I hope that you'll pause for a moment to enjoy a final few musical selections, and then also to join us for a tea in the hall, graciously provided by the ladies of Southminster. It's just through the doorway on my right, or to your left. So as we prepare to leave this place, I'd like to introduce to you the 5 singing guys. They are friends and faces that I know you know well, friends of Lottie's, friends of George, and we're grateful to have them here with us today.